So, welcome to the session on partnerships for clean energy innovation, the needs, opportunities on the road to 1.5. So, my name is Eleanor Webster. I'm head of the Mission Innovation Secretariat. Mission Innovation is a group of 24 member countries. We were born at the Paris Agreement in 2015. At COP29, when world leaders came together and said, this Paris Agreement sounds absolutely fantastic. It's very ambitious, but we need to do a lot on innovation. So how can we do that all together? And how can we start to make sure that we work together where we're not really working together already, to make sure that we're not duplicating our activity? And so 10 years on, Mission Innovation is still going, and the UK have been proud to lead the Mission Innovation Secretariat for the last 8 years. But today we are going to talk about the importance of innovation, but the importance of partnerships in driving and catalysing innovation as we move forwards. As we all know, the IEA have projected that almost 35% of technologies needed to meet net zero are still in the prototype phase, and there are many challenges in scaling up on the innovations that do exist. And so working together is absolutely essential to make sure that we can break down those barriers and catalyse innovation, both in terms of bringing new things on board, but making sure that the things that we do have manage to get spun up to the deployment phase as quickly as possible. And what we're going to do today is we're going to hear some from the panelists, and we're going to hear some fantastic examples of where partnerships have worked well. So hopefully we can all leave here today with an understanding of what a good partnership can look like. So in terms of the agenda, we are going to have welcome remarks from Norella, from Irina, and then we're going to have a quick panel discussion. And then we are going to have a dynamic discussion with the group using Slido, with some of the guiding questions on the slide above. So with that, Norella, I welcome you to provide opening remarks. Thank you very much, Norella.
Thank you very much, Eleanor, for inviting Irina to Mission Innovation as Deputy Director of Innovation and Technology Center situated in Bonn, so in Europe. I truly believe that innovation is crucial for the energy transition, and I do that also myself. I worked all the time in the innovation field. What we are going to do with the energy system across the world. I think we have to move it towards a new paradigm shift. But we have the existing energy system, and therefore we have to bridge the gap from what we have today towards the future. And actually the 2030 pledge, which was embraced by many countries last year in COP28, is putting a target ahead of us. Irina was actually entrusted to track this renewable tripling pledge capacity by 2030. We have to arrive to 11.2 terawatt. So this is quite important. And last year, 2023, was the year where actually renewables were deployed. Not sufficient yet, but it was the largest deployment. Not all of them, they were doing equally. So photovoltaic was doing much better than the other technologies, and therefore we have also to look at the other technologies. Energy efficiency remains still an important gap. Furthermore, the deployment was not equal. So, of course, we have North America, Europe, and China who are doing excellent, and they're making for 85% of the renewable capacity deployment, other parts of the globe for the rest. And in order to increase actually this renewable deployment capacity, we have to look at structural and systemic barriers. And these are, first of all, the infrastructure, so the grids, existing one, but also the expansion, the regulatory frameworks and market design, and of course the skills and institutional capabilities. when I started to work on innovation, it was very much focused on technologies, and of course the renewables were at that time at the forefront. I think we start now to move into a new dimension, which is more looking at the systems, at the ecosystems as such. So we talk about systemic innovation, and as Irina, we published until now 2 reports regarding innovation flagships, and actually next year we will come up with the 3rd edition, looking more on sustainable growth powered by renewables and taking into account what it has to be done also in the global south. And next year we will have Irina Innovation Week taking place in June in Bonn. Now, still looking at few examples. I mentioned that grids are, for example, one bottleneck. So by putting together the grids and digitalization, we can actually increase the existing use of the networks, but also managing all these devices, there are millions, in a kind of more automated way. This is one example. Another example, of course, wind is there. Onshore wind is deployed. The levelized cost of electricity is cheaper than fossil fuel. Offshore wind, it's a little bit less, how to say, of course, is deployed, but we have new areas in which we have to act. So there are the fixed bottom structures, but there are floating structures as well, and many countries will need that. Management of critical materials. We just released recently a report on materials for the batteries for electromobility. More and more materials are coming, and this is due to innovation. So innovation has a significant impact, and you mentioned, Eleanor, that actually 30%, 35% of innovations are still needed to ensure the energy transition. So I turn now to the mission innovation. And mission innovation, it's a central platform for action and investments in research, development, demonstration, in order not only to make, of course, the renewables reaching at technology readiness level to be deployed, but also to make them affordable and attractive and accessible to all. Irina started, I was not there at that time, to support mission innovation from the beginning. And I think last month in Mission Innovation Ministerial in Brazil, we were actually looking at the examples to reach an impact of the mission innovation across the work streams. And we have to deepen the cooperation, especially with emerging and developing economies. I mentioned that actually the renewables are, for example, not deployed equally. And the investments have to also go to those countries like Africa or where only 2% of investments are actually pushed over the last decade. So increased access to financing and growth potential should be also have in mind as an impact actually for why we do those innovations. So I hope and I'm pleased to follow you today to address these important issues. And I'm looking forward to advance our common goals towards a sustainable and innovative energy future. So I wish that we have a productive discussion today, that we have exchanges, and I look forward for the event today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Narella, and thank you to Irina for your ongoing collaboration with Mission Innovation. It's very much appreciated. Right, so now we're going to move on to our panel, and we're lucky enough to have an absolutely fantastic panel today. So to start with, I'd like to introduce Dimitrios Papathanassiou, who is the Global Director for the World Bank's Energy and Extractives Global Department. Next, I would like to introduce Liam McDonough, the Director General for Net Zero Nuclear and International at the Department of Energy Security and Net Zero in the UK. And our third panellist is Vincent Ogaya from the Kenya Climate Innovation Centre, who is joining us dialing in. Fantastic, we worked. Hello, Vincent. Thank you for joining us. Fantastic.
Yeah, good to see you.
Thank you, Vincent. So it sounds like technology-wise, we're all working. Great. So we're going to have a couple of questions for our panelists. So I'm going to kick off, Dimitrios, with you, if that's okay. So the first question is, from your perspective, what are the major barriers to scaling up innovation for industrial decarbonisation in the Global South? And how is the World Bank working with partners to understand how to tackle them?
Thank you very much, Eleanor. Sorry, hold on. All right. Thank you. We needed more innovation, right? Look, there's two main factors that prevent innovation from happening in the developing countries at the speed that we need. The first one is perceptions about technology risks and experience regarding technology risks. Sometimes it is lack of human capacity who is educated and used to technologies that they haven't seen before. And then the second issue is, of course, the lack of sufficient capital for investment and the cost of capital, as well as the fact that sometimes you really have a gap between new products that are coming and the incumbent products, that because they have been going on for some time, there is a difference in price that in the beginning, at least until new products get a hold into markets, they might require some support in making the viability of these products in the market financially stable. So these are the two main issues. And what we have been doing is we have been working through ESMAP, our Energy Sector Management Assistance Program, and try and identify areas where we feel that there are good opportunities to promote industrial decarbonization. And we have been working with the UK's Energy Innovation Fund, which is part of ESMAP. And again, it's a good opportunity to thank the UK for the collaboration we have been having all these years on promoting decarbonization in industry. And we always feel that the grant financing that we're allocating in the sector needs to be able to leverage a significant amount of private sector capital as well. So we know that grant financing is rare, it's very precious, and we don't have tons of it. So it's important that we use it in a catalytic way. And I'll give you two examples where we feel that this has worked well. We looked at two cases, one in Turkey for manufacturing of aluminum and one in Ghana for ceramic tiles. And both of these industries are extremely energy intensive. And in many cases, they can be highly polluting depending on what is it exactly that we're using as a fuel for heat and for transformation. And the good news is that now we have in these two opportunities, our colleagues from the International Finance Corporation, the private sector financing arm of the World Bank, has provided more than $350 million to make these two opportunities come to life. So now there is a modern way of producing ceramic tiles in Ghana, which is much more less intensive and much more less polluting. And we have, with the aluminum factory in Turkey, not only we reduced the level of energy that has been going in the production, but we managed to use much more of the scrap material that was earlier left on the ground and was discarded, to bring it back into the production and have savings in two fronts, essentially. So I think these are two examples that show that despite the initial difficulties, if you bring the right knowledge and the right practices, there's a lot that can happen. And again, I think what I feel it's something really notable is that it is possible to use grant financing in a really catalytic way that can then unlock what we're all looking for, much more private investment that can happen on the ground. And of course, these are two small examples. What we're trying to do next is try and work with local financial institutions, local either commercial or development banks, or a combination of the two, and see how we can identify the right investments in industry, which would then be financed with local capital, where we can avoid and manage a lot of the foreign exchange risks of investments, and unlock the local capital markets as well. So we're doing this now in Brazil with the Brazil National Development Bank. We will be supporting them in putting together a whole industry decarbonization fund, and we'll put some of our own funding as technical assistance there. And we feel that there is a good opportunity to scale this very significantly. This is under preparation with BNDES of Brazil, and we feel that we can reach probably, as we go ahead, a pot of money of about $1 billion that can then be allocated for industry decarbonization in Brazil. So let me stop here for now. And I would like to come back later maybe on what we feel is a new frontier on decarbonization, which is how we can do much more with low carbon hydrogen and green hydrogen as well.
No, thank you, Dimitros. That's amazing to kick us off. Thank you, and very inspirational. And it's great to hear catalytic used, because I think we've heard that word quite a lot where it relates to funding. And it's great to hear how catalytic grant money can really bring many different stakeholders together to get projects going. So that's absolutely fantastic. Thank you. And with Lee, Dimitros mentioned the UK there, but is there, what else is the UK doing to foster partnerships that drive clean energy innovation?
Thanks, Edna, and good afternoon, everybody. And I'm really pleased that the tech's working. This is the first panel I've been to where we've had an online participant, so thank goodness it worked, right? Innovation in connecting together. So great to have this panel. So look, I think, as you said, Elna, and Norella said as well, innovation is actually critical. We won't deliver net zero without innovation, and we all know the stats. And I guess from the UK perspective, having a ring-fenced innovation fund has been part of our net zero strategy since we first launched it. And the UK government's sort of investing, I think it's about 4.2 billion up until 2025. And that is specifically focused on catalysing private sector investment into green technologies and supporting areas that are difficult for the market to address alone. So really focusing on that sort of close to market that just needs that big push to get it over the line. And we've got lots of details published actually from our net zero innovation portfolio, which show that you can deliver significant leverage actually from this investment if the contracts are the right type of thing. And it's very positive and really inspiring when you see ratios of 5 to 1 or whatever it is, because that gives us hope that we'll be able to sort of capitalise and get the levels that we actually need. But the other thing I would just say is, sort of as part of this process of decarbonising that we're trying to do at pace, so we need to go faster, as we said, but we also need to ensure that we've got a fair and just transition, and that countries across the globe are going to have to innovate in their own ways actually to address their own specific needs. And actually the UK is also committed to supporting that, and we use our international climate finance to foster partnerships with others, and through also leading on things like the Breakthrough Agenda and Mission Innovation, which obviously you're part of. And I guess one to pull out is the Ertem Fund, which is investing up to £1 billion of our international climate finance to support developing countries to demonstrate and develop innovative solutions to their own specific issues. And so this is a theme that's run through lots of the discussions I've had today, which is like you can't do one size fits all. Every country has its own challenges. Every country is at a different stage, different regimes, and so we need mechanisms, I guess, that are really flexible and can be adapted to different circumstances. We also support UNIDO's net zero partnerships, I think £40 million, which is working to facilitate technology collaboration at the company level. So again, these different levels of scale that we need in order to be able to deliver the outcomes. I mean, we need so much progress that we genuinely do need to go on all fronts. So that sort of scale, but also in supporting smaller, innovative agendas to sort of move forward. So I think there's lots going on. There's many of these things being delivered. I guess my challenge is to us all is current efforts are they're often sort of unconnected and uncoordinated, and therefore I actually think impact is diluted compared to what it should be. And so as a consequence of that sort of dilution, we just don't get the critical mass that we need, to genuinely sort of underpin the scale of what we're trying to do here and the innovation we need to drive the transition. And that's why, mission innovation and the breakthrough agendas, they're just so important as they provide frameworks, that we can leverage to work with others. So you get this sort of like cumulative crowding in impact, which is what I think we need in order to really deliver. So, really positive about both of those and a few others as well. But my plea, I guess, is to we all crowd in behind these missions and mechanisms rather than all doing our own thing.
Brilliant. Thank you, Lee. And it's fantastic. Thank you for giving us a challenge and a real piece of homework to think about how we can further engage with existing mechanisms. Okay, so with that, Vincent, sorry, just taking a sip of water, sorry. Hello. So Vincent, a question for you. Can you tell us a little bit about the Kenya Climate Innovation Centre and what challenges your work seeks to address?
Yeah, thank you very much, Elena, and hi to everyone over there in Baku. I hope my engagement here is one way to support decarbonization. Talking about Kenya Climate Innovation Center, our idea is to support the development and deployment of local climate technologies. And the energy sector is one of our key sectors, alongside other other climate mitigation and adaptation sectors. The energy sector is one of the major sectors because it takes about 40% of the support that we give. And what it means is looking at what is needed to grow an innovation from the time it's an idea, it's a prototype, to the time it gets into the market. And so we look at innovation in terms of technology innovation, but also technology in terms of business models. Because for a country like ours, and of course the broader East Africa region in which we operate, we look at energy access, we look at productive use of energy, but most importantly, ensuring that the technologies are enabled, innovators are enabled, they are given the right business skills, the right set of skills, where, for example, one can be simply an innovator but is not a business person. So how do we help them to give them the business skills that are needed to scale their innovations? The other thing would be the element of financing. And this one was mentioned earlier, and financing is a big deal here. So, for example, the proof of concept financing, we also have early stage financing for those that are actually growing and selling into the market. And then we also look at the policy landscape. We often say here at Kenya Climate Innovation Center that innovation comes before policy. And we have had instances where innovations fail to take off simply because the right policy context is not there. So we ensure that we work with government to be able to, for these innovations to be able to support in policy development and experiences that innovators and entrepreneurs within the sector are able to give. And this has actually worked on so well. We have had in Kenya cases where the government, for a long period of time, zero-rated renewable energy equipment, and this led to a big uptake of clean energy technologies for for over a decade actually. And then we also have had instances where you come in with an innovation, there is no policy landscape, but then we're able to work with government to ensure that that is done. Of course, in developing these technologies, there also needs to, innovators come in probably at very early stage. They don't know what to do in order to scale in terms of developing their products and developing these technologies. We give them the right kind of connection. We support them to be able to do that and to be able to ensure that the technologies developed meet the right set of standards and are actually able to go out into the market and provide the solution that is needed. So for the energy sector, we are actually working particularly on the distributed renewable energy model across East Africa for productive use and also to enable energy access for communities that are mainly far off the grids. And so you have to come up, you have to develop technologies, you have to develop business models that are able to reach those communities where they are so that they are able to access, but they are also able to use energy, the solar technologies, the wind technologies that are there in a very productive way. So that is the work that we do at the Kenya Climate Innovation Center. That is only on the energy sector, but we also focus mainly on the agriculture sector to help decarbonize the agriculture sector, but also to help decarbonize the transport sector. Right now in Kenya, there's big conversation on electric mobility. And so those are some of the sectors that we support decarbonization on. Agriculture, we look at the transport sector, but also industry, because it's also a big contributor to emissions, particularly around here. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Vincent, and thank you for pulling out the very important point about ensuring the creation of an enabling environment. I think that's absolutely essential. So hopefully we can go into a bit more detail of that in a second. But in the first round of questions, we've heard a lot about how we work with a variety of different stakeholders to encourage financing at all kinds of different levels. And Dimitrios, you in your initial example, you talked about innovations that help people with their everyday lives. So aluminium and also tiles, but I know the World Bank do much projects on much bigger scales. So, for example, the Hydrogen for Development Partnership is an extremely exciting example of a global platform to accelerate clean hydrogen deployments, and that's really centered around international cooperation. So, could you tell us more about how this platform supports industry?
So you're right. I mean, we started by giving two specific examples on specific applications. But one of the things that we know is that if we're going to have massive decarbonization at scale, one way of doing it is have massive substitution of fuels by green hydrogen. And this is a target which at the moment appears to be far into the future. It has been far into the future for some time. But what happened? But what happened is that we feel that as a lot of the renewable energy technologies have been coming down the cost curves, that created an opening and an opportunity to really start pushing down the cost of green hydrogen as well. So we put together an initiative under SMAP called the Hydrogen for Development Partnership. And what we have been doing on that was try to put together actors that were creating knowledge on hydrogen. We we made sure that we capture that knowledge, we curate it, and then we can disseminate it, because it still remains an area where there's a lot of hype, and people don't have a good understanding about what can be done, what can be reasonably expected, what are the time frames, and what are the costs. And they were looking for some authoritative, trusted voices on that space. So that was one of the pillars of our strategy on hydrogen for development. And we went very quickly. I think we launched this at COP27, so just a couple of years ago. And we very quickly went from an initial set of about 10 partners to about 50 now, which includes industry, the private sector, financial institutions, some of the research labs. And we're coming together, and we have advanced a lot our understanding of what is happening, what is coming, what are the cost curves. And the next thing we're doing is we're providing targeted technical assistance to governments so that they can develop their own strategic roadmaps, figure out where they can apply hydrogen, what are the early niche applications. And in fact, it is because of some work that we were doing under this, that we worked with the government of India under their hydrogen mission. And we had targeted policy actions so that they can get the hydrogen mission in India to start and to create the viability gap funding as well. And actually, we recently approved 2 what we call policy loans for India, that they have a total of $3 billion. The policy standards are in place, and increasingly now we are seeing emerging activity and a lot of preparation of a number of projects, so that we can have applications of green hydrogen within India, and also India partnering to create green ammonia for export applications as well. There is a lot of activity. India has been very effective over the last decade or so in pushing down the cost of solar power within India, and I think they want to do the same for hydrogen. So this is something that is very exciting. There is some way to go. But we're also bringing on the table some new financial innovations. To give you an example of something that we're working on now, one of the big problems that we have with large-scale investments is how do we manage foreign exchange risks? Now, if you have a product, a green hydrogen product, green ammonia, for instance, that can then be exported and used in an OECD country, then any investment from an OECD country that supports this can be, in a way, ring-fenced throughout the supply chain. So, for instance, we're talking with Japan, we're talking with JBIC in Japan, and trying to figure out how a contract for offtake of green ammonia in Japan can be financed in Japanese yen and repaid in Japanese yen, because this will be consumed back in Japan. So that takes a big chunk of the cost of financing of the project and matches the currency of investment with the currency of revenues, maybe not for the full amount of the product, but for a good chunk of it. And we're trying to see how we can deploy our own financial risk mitigation instruments to underpin that as well. So there's a lot of happening in that space, and just the other day here, we announced our 10,000 megawatt, our 10 gigawatt hydrogen lighthouse initiative, which I think is another good example of how we are really expanding partnerships, because we managed to bring together a very large group of both multilateral and bilateral development partners and development banks, and we all agreed that hydrogen really has the potential. It's still at the early stages of innovation. It requires a lot of support, and we have to find a way to scale up. So we said, okay, we are going to make a joint commitment of all the MDBs and number of bilaterals that we're going to have 10,000 megawatts of green hydrogen investments in until 2030. And I think this is one of difficult but quite exciting things that are in play. And we're really counting on working with the climate investment funds as well. So we will be looking for support from that as well, so that we can really stagger the financing and we can give another push to this innovative technology for so many fronts. Thanks.
Thank you, Dimitrios. I think that's a fantastic example, and thank you for flagging how innovation in technology goes alongside innovation in financial models. I think when we talk about innovation, it's an extremely expanded definition, and we should think about innovation across the supply chain. So that's a great example. Thank you. And I think we've got a couple more minutes left for the panel. So I think I'm going to turn to Vincent to find out a bit more about some specific examples of partnerships, and then Lee, if it's okay, I'll turn to you to just think about how we can use existing mechanisms to further progress to round off the panel. Fantastic. Okay, so Vincent, it would be great if we can learn a little bit more about the partnerships that have enabled the Kenyan Climate Innovation Centre to grow and succeed, and what lessons that might be of interest to others.
Yeah, thank you very much, Elena, for that question. And I would say that from the very founding of Kenya Climate Innovation Center, it has been a story of partnerships. This is what has enabled us to be here since 2012. And I would say much of what we do, we rely on development partners to be able to co-create programs and to be able to reach the hard-to-reach areas and the hard-to-reach sectors in terms of supporting innovations. So our partnerships with UK Aid, with Danida, with the World Bank at the very outset were very key. But then, of course, as we grew, we also ensured that we reached out to other partners like the EU and the MOT Foundation and IKEA Foundation to be able to co-create programs. So for the energy sector in particular, I would say that one aspect that has worked well, particularly over the last 2 to 3 years, is our partnership with the MOT Foundation, which enabled us to reach the larger East Africa region, Tanzania and Uganda, with a program on productive use of solar energy. So where we support innovations not just in Kenya, but also across our borders, and particularly targeting productive use of solar energy in certain agricultural value chains, because our economy around Kenya and East Africa is still largely agricultural. So even when you talk about energy use, you still have to incorporate other sectors as well. So it has a ripple effect of also activating economic activity in the other sectors. And so that was the initial program, and then right now we got also another follow-on funding to be able to implement now a distributed renewable energy model again across the 3 countries, adding one additional, because of the ripple effect of creating jobs across, mitigating CO2 emissions within the agriculture sector, but also ensuring that you are able to churn out jobs within those sectors and activate partnerships with cooperatives, with different players within the sectors. And so other partnerships, for example, with Danida, is how to, research collaborations on how to connect mini wind to, the wind turbines to mini grids. And this was just looking at the market potential, and it was found to be huge, particularly within our country, Kenya. So our story is on partnerships, and partnerships also around investments. When our startups grow, they reach a point where the money that we give them to scale is not enough. And so we have to reach out to investors, both internally and externally, for them to be able to get the right funding that would propel them to that growth stage path. And so that's an element of partnership that has supported partnerships in terms of developing their products and ensuring that they meet the right standards, both locally and internationally. Those have worked. Again, partnerships with government institutions, as well as other policy other policy institutions at the international level, just to ensure that as a country we have the right policy context to help drive access.
Oh, sorry, Vincent. I'm just going to. Can we just ask others dialed in if they can mute, please? Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, Vincent.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so I just wanted to mention that partnerships in terms of policy has been very key. And one thing that has worked for us as a country particularly is that we have a very good buy-in from the government in terms of the policy landscape. We have conversations, and right now our energy access, clean energy access rate is about 75%. And this has largely been driven by partnerships with government and with other institutions to drive policy conversations and to help. We have challenges, particularly for the startups, for innovators, for small enterprises, because there is not so much focus on them. The big money still go to the big players, but in a way, I would say our policy landscape has been enabling, largely in part because of partnerships within the ecosystem, but also what the development partners are able to bring on board, and also the knowledge and technology transfer that we are able to also learn from elsewhere. And this is the kind of what the North-South partnership can be able to unlock in terms of knowledge transfer, technical expertise, so that even if we don't copy-paste, but we are able to learn and we are able to adapt within our local context.
Thank you, Vincent. I think that's a really inspiring, many inspiring examples included there. And just with that, Lee, if you don't mind rounding us off with the panel, there's many things that exist out there that can help us in our clean energy transition. So what do you feel the role of multilateral initiatives like Mission Innovation can play in unblocking barriers?
I'm going to be really quick so you can get onto your innovative part. I think I'd just make 2 points. So the first is you've heard it from everybody that's spoken already today. It's about knowledge exchange at expert level. It's about demystifying or myth busting. So, having factual evidence-based information about different innovation. It's about funding partnerships, demonstration projects and collaborations, particularly with the private sector. And actually your missions under Mission Innovation, they've got potential to unlock decarbonisation pathways for sectors. I think it's over 50% of current global emissions. So, you've got a really crucial role in doing that. And I guess the only other thing I would add is I know Mission Innovation's just launched its inclusivity catalyst. And actually, and I know that the Clean Energy Ministerial also does work in that area. So I actually think you have a crucial role in really showcasing how a just transition can take place. Because the reality is, if you don't build this in from the start, if we don't take people with us and they don't support we won't achieve what we need. We need people the citizen to be with us and explaining that we are creating the jobs of the future, and across the piece energy needs to focus on that, and innovation is no different.
Fantastic. Thank you, Lee. And can we just have a huge round of applause for our panelists? Thank you very much. Thank you. And then, so with that, I'm going to hand over to Paul Durant for the next part of our session, which is going to be a discussion with all of you. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you, everyone, and what a brilliant panel. So this is where we try to get innovative and hope that it works. So if we could go back to the slides, please, folk in the booth. You've been hearing a lot about exciting examples of innovation, exciting examples of programs and partnerships. We're now really keen to hear from you about some of your experiences. We've got a lot of good innovation happening, but we need so much more. And as we heard from Lee, we need that innovation to be in so many more countries, particularly in the global south. So with that in mind, if we go to the next slide. Wonderful. So we've got 3 questions on the screen, and we've also got a Slido link. So zoom in on the QR code. It should hopefully work for you. And then we'd love you to start posting answers to those questions. Keep them short and snappy, but we'd really love to hear from you on that. So I'm going to give you a little moment on that to zoom in. whilst you're doing all of that, let me introduce myself. I didn't do that earlier. So I'm Paul Durrant. I'm Head of Climate Innovation in the Department of Energy Security and Net Zero. So we provide funding for innovation in emerging markets and developing economies, particularly for the Ayrton Fund that Lee described earlier. I'm also joint head of the Breakthrough Agenda Secretariat, so as an international partnership, an international framework. We have an international team now located in many countries. And together we are trying to address the enabling conditions necessary to accelerate transitions, of which innovation is a major component. So having filled a little bit of time in there, I know we've got some really experienced people in the audience because I was speaking to them earlier. If we can, hopefully you've digested the questions. If we could go to the Slido responses, let's see if we're starting to get anything coming through. Oh, excellent. Okay. Too much on the screen, to be honest. Who wants to kick us off on this first question? What are the barriers and gaps to supporting clean energy innovation? We're trying to understand, with this question, what are the problems we're trying to tackle, and then in a second we'll turn to other things. Please, go ahead. Can you introduce yourself briefly and your organisation, and then tell us?
Certainly. I'm James Smith from REAP, which was created by the UK government about 20 years ago, now based in Vienna. We work with small and medium enterprises in developing countries and emerging markets. And I would say that one of the biggest gaps is the lack of equity for early stage companies, that without which they can't access senior debt and without which they are not able to establish themselves at scale.
Fantastic. That's a brilliant example. Anybody else? Please.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to ask a question. My name is Parfait. So I'm CEO of a company called Tech Power Services. It's based in DRC, but also I'm doing my PhD at the University of Cambridge in the UK. So I can say that what is actually the main barrier to the innovation is lack of funding, as actually said. As local entrepreneur, at least we have a business model, innovative actually solution to help to bridge, the energy access gap. But the problem is we do lack, funding to implement those innovation, and this is especially in a volatile country like DRC. It's really hard. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's very understandable. Over here. Sorry, I'm making you run around with the mic. We do have a second mic, don't we? So.
Well, thank you very much. Giorgio Rambelli, I'm actually the director of one of the mission innovation, the one on urban transitions. From a city perspective, I think one of the key difficulties that cities that are trying to become net zero, inclusive, resilient are facing when it comes to innovation is around being able to do public procurement of innovation. A lot of them either don't know exactly how to address that or are very set in their own ways of how they have been doing public procurement until now, and they are missing out a little bit on some of the opportunities that, of course, new technologies can provide. The second element that I like to underline is in line with what was already mentioned. I think the financing piece is quite complicated and difficult. A lot of this innovation is still not affordable enough for cities, and I'm not talking just about Global South, but I'm also talking about communities that might be small or medium scale. So there is still some work to be done there to make sure that the uptake is vast enough so that we can also lower the cost of these solutions and make them affordable for all.
Yeah, okay. Finance, leveraging public procurement, making technologies more affordable. Anybody else want to pull out something? Okay, lots of hands. Here, gentlemen.
My name is Ted Moyer. I am from ED Advisory, which is based in Kenya but works around Africa. And I think when we look at innovation, it's not simply about software or technology. So there needs to be innovative financing, but also there needs to be an understanding of local nuance. You can throw money at a problem and technology at a problem and still have unjust outcomes. So I think also policy implementation is a problem. We see around Africa beautifully written laws and policies, but the implementation piece is where the problem comes in. And I think I was quite pleased to hear that when we talk about innovation now, we talk about innovating financial mechanisms, because the debt appetite for many developing countries is not there anymore, because there is public sentiment against heavier borrowing and there is currency risk. So we need to also have financial technologies that hedge against some of these problems, whether it's central bank digital currencies or distributed ledger technologies, to just ensure that money actually gets in the most efficient and cheapest way to make this possible. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. I think there was a lady at the back.
Hello, my name is Altanay. I am a member of Global Youth Organization working for Sustainable Development Goals, and I am from Kazakhstan, and my answer is the first one on the screen, so black business, because in our country, companies have big interest in having coal and gasoline still in demand, so they kind of like hold innovations that want to bring clean energy in the market, because it's just like a competition for them.
Fantastic. I wonder, can we scroll up? Because I fear there's many more answers than we've got space on the screen. I'm going to move on to the second question in a moment. So I think two more hands. Gentleman here and then gentleman here. So.
Oh, thank you. My name is Jarl Krausing. I'm heading up a think tank in Denmark called Concito. And one thing that we are really realizing now is it is as much a problem, of course, on financing and getting that in place, etc. But it's really also on the demand side. I mean, I think, for instance, the hydrogen, how should I say, adventure right now is exactly challenged on the fact that, it's not really clear where the demand is going to come from in terms of actually making it happen in reality. So I think it really is also a political commitment to align innovation with what we actually want from our energy systems in the future. So that could also much clearer drive what kind of a financing you would need and what role public finance should play in actually de-risking and getting support to the right technologies pushing these things forward. So I think demand is a key issue across all of these agendas.
Yeah, thank you. I very much agree with that. It's very much a theme of this COP. We're seeing that coming across very strongly. Gentleman there.
Well, first of all, I completely resonate with my colleague here. It's a very valid point on the financing bit of it, because I believe that scaling of the solution is where we need to scaling of the innovation is where we need to bridge the gap. And while we speak about public finance, private finance, blended finance as well, I think there are a lot of solutions which are already available in the ecosystem right now, where we are finding the gap is not able to scale some of the solutions. And it is already available in the UNFCCC and the UNEP landscape as well, with the likes of CTC and with the likes of TEC. They are all very much accessible to all the developing nations, LDCs, even with some sort of a funding provided by GCF. But what we would like to see is some of the right mechanism in which it's been utilized as such. Thank you.
Okay, that's brilliant. That's quite a nice segue to our next question. So if we can go to the second question. Essentially, those were the problems, or at least some of the problems. What are some of the solutions? And we feel the premise of this event is that partnerships can be really helpful in this respect. So keen to hear from examples of successful partnerships that are helping to address some of those gaps. And don't worry, we will look at every Slido answer afterwards as well, even if we don't have time to look at them now. So, give you a moment to put things on Slido, but who wants to kick us off on that? Smita.
Thank you very much. I'm Smita Fokiev, Industrial Development Officer from UNIDO, United Nations Industrial Development Organization. So we have a long track record on helping organizations, helping countries create the right ecosystem for innovation, whether it's in clean tech or manufacturing, you mentioned it. But I think we have several examples, as I said. The current one I'm working on is the Global Partnership for Hydrogen in Industry. And it's really about maintaining trust, getting the trust, and creating a long-term partnership with those countries. The main issue, the main barrier that we see is lack of knowledge and lack of transfer of knowledge and technology to those countries. Despite we think there's plenty out there, as Dimitrios said from the World Bank, we need to curate it and in a form that is accessible to them. So this is something we do, and it does seem to come across as trustworthy and honest broker style. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Curating, honest broker. Gentleman in the front here.
Hello, my name is Daniel Duma. I'm a research fellow at the Stockholm Environment Institute, where I lead a program called Finance for Sustainable Development. I think I have an interesting example that I came across during my research on renewable energy finance in sub-Saharan Africa. As you know, one of the biggest risks in developing renewable energy projects is construction risk. And I've been able to see a rare case where technological innovation in the form of pre-assembled trackers for solar panels enabled business model innovation, which made it possible for a company, a Norwegian company, to replace the normal power purchase agreement with a leasing agreement. And this is a perfect example of partnerships. The Norwegian Development Agency provided a grant, the IFC provided loans, the Dutch Development Bank provided equity investment, and together with the Cameroon utility, they were able to deploy 30 megawatts of solar in record time and deliver already millions of dollars of savings. So it's a successful example right there.
I love that example. I mean, it's a brilliant example of the systemic innovation that we often talk about, where technology innovation, kind of innovation in business models, the ways in which the system operates, finance innovation. We talk about it a lot. We don't often see some brilliant examples. That sounds like a great one. I'd love to know more. Anybody else want to come in? Gentleman at the back and then the lady at the front.
Hi everyone, Jakub Verba from Energy Saving Trust. We provide grants to companies in Sub-Saharan Africa and South Asia to deliver technology innovation in off-grid solar appliances. And this is enabled by funding from the UK government and the IKEA Foundation through the Efficiency for Access Coalition. And what we have learned, especially during the COVID pandemic, was that we had to be very flexible in terms of our funding and grants provided to companies, and not seeing it as a transactional relationship, but really a partnership with them. And since then, we have really worked with the local companies and being flexible in terms of our grants and making sure that we actually reflect the realities on the ground, because it's one thing to put something in the proposal, and then when you deliver a project over 2 or 3 years, things do change, especially when you work in remote rural communities in challenging markets. So I think it's really important that we see this as a partnership as grant providers rather than only a transactional relationship with them. Thank you.
Fantastic. I love that example. So pragmatic, not transactional, and flexibility to adapt.
Hi, thank you. This is Catherine from Aviva, an industrial software company based in the UK. We have a number of public-private partnerships that we work with across the world. One that springs to mind in this context is we have a long-lasting partnership with the government of India, where we've supported their 100 Smart Cities program. In fact, we're now on the second 100 Smart Cities. And the benefit there has been not just that we've been able to work with the government over a long period to sort of support the continued evolution of the policy framework and the investment frameworks that support the smart cities, but also that we've been able to innovate with city organisations over time in order to improve the software that we're bringing to them, and then also to ensure that the implementation, all the lessons are learned from one city to the next, because a lot of this is happening sequentially. So I think it's not just about thinking about different sectors partnering, but even over that longitudinal period, how that partnership can inform and refine upon itself. Just as the technology improves, the understanding improves, the taxation or the regulation system and incentives can improve as well. So really having that long-term vision, I think, is something that we find really differentiating in terms of the impact we can make. And now we're seeing, when we do new deployments, we can help cities to achieve up to 25% emissions reductions through traffic optimization, or we can improve their healthcare access and facilities quite dramatically. So it's really exciting to have that kind of long-term view.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. That sounds a really exciting example. We're over time. I'm going to run it 1 or 2 minutes longer and no more. So if we go to our last question, do please post on Slido. I'm looking for 20-second interventions around what more can we do. So how do we build on those partnerships? How do we strengthen it? Just in the front here. Sorry.
Thank you. Georgia Rambelli again, Urban Transition Mission. I'm thinking about leveraging global partnerships that already exist in the incredible value that mission innovation has. One of the things that our mission is doing is to work with the other mission that we are running. So the one on hydrogen, the one on carbon dioxide removal, the one on green power future, to help our cities understand how to use, learn, and understand what technologies are for them and how they can leverage what innovation is being created by all the other missions. Final remark. Collaborating with all the partners that are part of mission innovation. And one shiny example is the trainings that we have carried out together with IRENA, 9 sessions specifically to teach our cities about the most innovative and renewable energy technologies.
Fantastic, thank you. Okay, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 20 seconds each, and then we'll have to stop.
I'll be very quick, 10 seconds probably. I just want to name a few existing platforms. I missed to name, share my name. My name is Kishan Sanglani. Quickly on the existing platform, the World Energy Council, they have already published a trilemma index, which serves on 3 purposes: energy security, energy equity, and environmental sustainability. Well-established platform, existing for more than 100 years. So that's something that one can leverage. And then from a finance perspective, City has a clean energy transition, consortium as well, the fund which they run. So there are a couple of those partnerships existing from finance as well as from the energy perspective.
Fantastic.
Took more than 10 seconds, sorry.
It was good. Here, whichever, and then we'll finish that.
I'll be really quick. So Peter Warren, also from the UN's Industrial Development Organization. We have a new large-scale facility called the Accelerate to Demonstrate facility, and it funded a market assessment that we launched a few days ago. But in summary, one of the key findings from that on innovation across things like industrial decarbonisation, hydrogen, smart energy, critical minerals, was actually these international initiatives often have a lot of gaps but also overlaps. And the more that these initiatives can actually work together, and we also found as well that a lot of them don't actually focus so much on developing countries. And when they do, there's only usually 3 or 4 of the big emerging economies that are part of some of these international initiatives. So the more we can work with those developing countries in these international initiatives, the better.
Fantastic. Final word to you.
So, Ted Moyer, I think what we can do is increase ambition, not just in the amount of money that's being given or the type of technologies that are being deployed, but in the outcomes. So in many developing countries, what we see is just basic access, a light bulb. And we need to move beyond that to having access to services, to industrialization, and to innovation. So in terms of just measuring success, we need to have greater ambition in ensuring that we have sustainable but enhanced access to energy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's a lovely point to finish on. So thank you very much. This innovation in the way we've done this has worked, almost worked too well. With so many different interventions. Thank you very much for that. We heard a lot about challenges. We've heard a lot about some great solutions. One thing that we've been thinking with Mission Innovation, Breakthrough Agenda, etc., is that there's a lot more that we can learn from each other about these partnerships and how they work, and particularly partnerships that are addressing Global South needs. So we'd love to bring together more of you on more occasions, a sort of community of practice, if you will, so we can learn from each other. So watch this space for that. Thanks again for your attention. Enjoy the rest of your day.